Okay. Hi everyone. Just checking the connection here again. Letting some of you jump on if you're joining us for the live this morning. Oh, Alex is on. All right, so I'm going to invite Alex in. That's it. Live. She's coming on. All right, it's just connecting. Yay! Yay!
Hi.
Hi!
Hello. Lovely to see you.
So good to see you.
I hope it's warmer there than it is here. It's freezing.
It's a bit hot. It's humid today because I think it might rain.
Oh, yeah. We've had
But
rain. Very chilly. All rugged up.
oh, that's so nice. It's
Yeah,
much cooler here than it was.
before.
Oh, there's some people joining. Hello. Hi. So this is your first Instagram live, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've done lots of Facebook Lives, but I'm just learning my way around Instagram. Thanks
Yeah.
to you. Showing me
Right.
how it works, all the buttons.
It's pretty easy. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Fantastic.
sorry. Hi. Thanks for joining us. All right. So I think we'll get into it because this video will save. It'll be on here for 24 hours up on Instagram before it removes itself, but we'll also save it and I'll put it up on my YouTube channel so that it's there forever for people to watch. So I wanted to just get started with talking about you and your work and like your true work, what you really do, because we were talking privately about how you've got like multi-layered areas, but all within the crystal realm. Um, and people think you do this and this and this when really it encompasses it all. Yet you've got uh, also some really specific work that maybe people don't know so much about. So I just wanted to get started on you talking about all that you do.
Oh, thank you, Chrissy. Thank you so much. Yeah, so just a little bit of background on me. So I've been working with crystals and gemstones, well, solidly, like lots of them for over 10 years now. So in a wholesale capacity. So I guess a big part of my job was selecting, grading, like literally thousands of crystals coming through my hands, supplying crystals to healers, supplying crystals to shops all over Australia. And then in that process, just because I loved them and I fell in love with the beauty, I think being around so many of crystals really have a big impact on your, I guess, abilities to be sensitive to energy and information. So I guess I went through a massive shift during that period. I mean, I was always very much interested in crystals, but it wasn't really something that I thought could be my life's focus. And it's only now that I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been consistent in this work for a long time. So I'm like, wow, maybe this is actually a thing I do. And people ask, well, what do you do? So part of that journey was, obviously I had an amazing collection and I'm like, I can't just keep hoarding crystals. I've got to share them. So I would take them to festivals and I'd be making jewelry. So a lot of my sort of more hobby work has been just crafting with them. And I just really loved that journey of helping people select crystals and helping people find ones that really align for them for healing or for growth, expansion, for different reasons. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what is a healing crystal? And I want a healing crystal. And the thing is they're all healing, because just as the earth is healing, they just all have different ways in which they work with us, kind of similar to plants. So that was just really beautiful, just to be able to really delve into all the different ways they work with us, with people. So I've kind of been in that sort of teaching role sort of naturally with people who are interested. And then I've really delved more deeper into one-on-one work and also group work, but through my own study of liquid crystals. So using crystals as a way to take them internally to program our bodies, because essentially we are giant crystals. And so I really love the idea of being able to ingest them, because, you know, you see something beautiful and it's like, I want to eat that. Like sometimes the response to crystals is like, I salivate. I don't know if anyone else out there feels that, but it's really because they are full of minerals, you know, like we are a big sack of minerals ourselves. You know, our blood is like liquid crystal, is liquid minerals. So we are this big complex of minerals anyway. So it makes sense that we're attracted to different colors, different shapes, different things that actually hold these mineral contents. And it makes sense that we take them as medicine as well. So I've really gone down the medicine path with crystals. Got a bit of a background in Chinese medicine as well, and kinesiology. So yeah, really loving how they can support us in healing, and also just, you know, adornment and all sorts of things as well. So that's just a little bit of a over round of how I kind of got into it, and
Yeah,
how it ties together.
it's amazing. And I've seen you in action with crystals, and the way that you, like, your connection to them is so genuine and really, really embodied. Like, I, I don't know how to explain how I've seen you work with them, but the way that you take those codes and frequencies into your cells, and it's like exchanging of information. It's like two crystals coming together and exchanging this information, like viewing that from my perspective. So yeah, I just feel like you're really a genuine, humble master of this work, and I'm really happy to see you sharing it with people.
Well, I think that comes from, like any master in their field, it comes from, I guess, a deep passion and a genuine love for what you do. And it's like I genuinely love them. Like I feel like they're almost like yeah, it's interesting because people say, do you talk to crystals? Do they talk to you? And it's not so much, I mean, I guess I would say yes, but it's not in the way that people would imagine. But I think with any living thing, like whether it's an animal or a plant or any part of nature, a crystal, and like another human, it's like we are in a process of exchange all the time. There is a natural reciprocity that happens when we are meeting something, an object, with our heart space. So a big part of, I guess, what you've seen with me is just me getting into a space of being in the heart and then connecting like I would connect with a human. You know, it's that same thing, but it's not with words. So it's a lot more felt, and sometimes it the movement of energy, because crystals are emotional medicine. So even though they are, you know, solid, hard, structured things, they actually, with true structure, when we have structure, it really allows things to flow. So you think of a riverbed, you know, with a riverbed that's carved out, you know, the water still flows through that. And when you don't have, when the boundaries of things are blurry and there's not structure, it's like the flow can get a bit messy, and it's kind of like in our bodies as well. And so a lot of working with crystals is understanding the balance of lines, geometry, mental structure, and light, because essentially light and information needs that kind of structure to be held within it. But the movement of love that flows through that, or the movement of life force, is like emotions. And that really what really helps us to shift energetically in a response to a crystal. So yeah, we're really moved by color, we're moved by shape, we're moved by beauty. And I think I saw something really beautiful I wanted to mention was a doctor actually talking about life, and I think he was talking about, you know, genetics and things. But one thing he said was, even though a lot of us will say love is the common thread in everything and love is all there is, he said actually there's beauty is all there is. And when we respond to beauty, love is the response. So because crystals are so beautiful, like they just make my heart sing, it's like the response is love. So they take you into that love frequency really quickly. That's my experience anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. That's, yeah, I really like the way that you put that. So I guess I want to talk about your, because you did a crystalline body report for me. So I really want to talk about that and get into some of that work and how that's come through for you, because that's really like a combination of everything you've learned, been working with and collecting over these years, and you've put it all together in a way that you can work with people one-on-one and support them and help get them to basically optimum functioning and capacity and fullest potential, really, through working with crystals. So I want to talk about that, and then I guess I'll go into some other questions later. But I feel like let's talk a little bit about how you've come to collect all of that and bring this work forward. Like what it is, what that actually is for people to experience.
Yeah, sure. So the crystalline body reports are a combination of lots of things, like you said, but a big part of that has come from my liquid crystal training. So part of the report gives a framework, because I love the structure, gives a framework
Very
for people, yeah, for people just to know where, it's like a map, to know where you're at in your, it's sort of like a big, yeah, a template or a map to know where you are and where you are on your path and how crystals can support you in taking the next steps in your life. So the first session is really about gathering data, and it's very much like an astrology report. So I do work with someone's name, where they were born, and their date of birth. And so how that calculation first starts is actually our names hold syllables, and so sound vibration is very much it holds a lot of information. So we can actually break sound vibration, like which is like light frequency, into numerical content, and that can be deciphered in crystalline codes. So it's a process of really seeing someone through the lens of a crystal and seeing what unique crystals kind of hold the essence, someone's soul essence, really. So I'm looking at in the reports what someone is walking around like Chrissy, like you do you remember your three crystals, what they were? There were like three crystals that were kind of your signature for who you are as your personality and your life, and like the name that you've come in with. And then from there, it really gives us an indication to where your strengths are, where your challenges are, and what would happen if you were to bring them together to really step into your highest path and purpose. Because essentially that's why we're all here, right? We're here to really find what makes us sing, makes our souls sing. And when you click into those spaces, it makes navigating life so much easier. And then the next part of the report is actually seeing how where you are on the big sort of picture of life. And I work with the Tree of Life, and it is an ancient Kabbalic wisdom, but it's actually far older than that. And it was actually a template given to us from our star brothers and sisters. So that information has been seen on temple walls in Egypt and different places. Like the Tree of Life is really permeated through all cultures, because it's essentially the map of as above, so below. And when we can really connect in with our soul essence, which sits in the center as a bridge between our cosmic world and our earthly planes, we really become the masters of our own life. And when we know what we're dealing with, and I explain it through crystalline frequency, we can narrow the bandwidth down. So imagine you've got a huge bandwidth of color, like light is this color spectrum, and all the crystals lie along that bandwidth. And when you can narrow down a section to focus on, it can really help you with the steps. rather than being bamboozled by like, wow, there's so many beautiful colors and which, you know, where do I go? It's really great just to help what you are working with currently, what you've integrated and what's really working for you, and where there are challenges and how you can support yourself with crystals. And they each have a song, they each have a story, and how they work with each other is going to be very different depending on which other crystals you're working with in response to who you are as a unique human being. So there are so many crystal books out there, and there's a lot of information which gives you like a general understanding of how they work, but it's kind of like having a book describing all the people in your life. It's like there are certain characteristics we can agree on, but there are certain relationships that you can't even explain, because it's really between how you respond to that crystal or you respond to that person. And I think that's what I'm really passionate about, helping people to engage with their personal response to something and their personal relationship, rather than just what a book tells them, or you know, like, I want a love stone, so I've got to work with rose quartz. I mean, there's so many different frequencies of love you can work with depending on what you're wanting to tap into. And then, of course, you know, it goes down and down, but I go into the body systems, I go into all the chakras, I go into the energy centers and light quotient, because essentially the whole intention, or my desire behind offering this, is to assist people to hold more light. And that's what we are journeying with when we are in this process of evolution, is becoming a bigger vessel to hold more light in every cell of our being. And again, the crystals are an amazing way to do that, because they show us that they are living embodiments of light in code, in physicality, which we're kind of moving towards that.
Yeah. I actually was rereading the report that you did for me last night, and I got down to reading again about the light quotient, and I love about holding the frequencies of light, and that your intention was to get people to that 500 mark, and that if we could hold that space collectively in humanity, that's when we get to enter. That's when we actually start to enter the golden age, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One day, I got a very clear, like, download of information or message that was saying you need to expand people, like in my work, is to expand people's light quotients. And I didn't even know what a light quotient was when I heard this. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I got very clear numbers, and just told, like, this is where the majority of the planet's at now. And this is where like people who hold a level of mastery and enlightenment, embodied masters, will hold a certain level, and this is what we're aiming to get humanity to, this certain level of embodiment for this time in life, and this massive stage of awakening that we're in. And I thought that was really interesting, that I just got all this information, so I wrote it all down, and
And
then
so,
I found this
sorry,
book.
I just wanted to ask, that was all completely channeled. That
Yeah,
was,
that was, yeah, just a literally, like, detailed information, and just information about, I got lots of information about Jesus and his light quotient, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting, like the Christed consciousness grid. Um, so I then researched it, and then found that there's a man called Dr. David Hawkins, who wrote a book called, and he happened to be a kinesiologist too, which is interesting, because I've studied kinesiology, but I hadn't heard of him before. And he has a whole list of all the emotions, the human emotions, and what vibrational frequencies they are at. And 500, which I was told was the frequency of love. And then beyond then, there were other emotions that are even higher than that. But that was kind of like this bandwidth. And I was like, wow, that's super interesting, that the exact numbers that came to me have been documented by doctors in their fields of energy science and kinesiology and quantum physics and all of this. So it's all in the collective, you know, we're all so intimately connected. And but that was kind of a little piece of my puzzle to the motivation between offering these kind of body reports.
yeah, that's a beautiful intention to have. for the work that you're doing.
And
Um,
sometimes doing that kind of work does also require, in order to expand and receive more, we have to clear out a lot. So I think we're all in this process of letting go and clearing and releasing, like breaking down old structures in order to make new ones. And essentially, the crystalline body is like activating and awakening the crystalline body codes that are our original blueprints, not ones that have been tampered with or messed with, or holding a lot of programming and patterns and different things that aren't serving us. So yeah, a big part of my work is also clearing the old in order to reprogram with crystalline light frequency.
Amazing. It's really incredible work and really unique. Like I haven't come across anything like this before. So I think it's really beautiful what you're bringing through. And can you, maybe for those of us who don't know much about liquid crystals, can you touch
Yeah, sure.
like what are liquid crystals? Why do we work with them? Because I know that they're a big part of like when you do a crystalline body report and getting your system really online and into those
Yeah.
frequencies, use these as well as crystals. Like
Yes,
the
so yeah, these liquid crystals are a big part of what I prescribe for people afterwards. So there'll be certain crystals that, yes, it's really great if you can, if you have access to physical crystals. But the reason why they were developed in the first place is there aren't always huge amounts of the type of crystals we need. Like there are a lot of very common crystals that you do find in crystal shops, but there's also more rarer frequencies that um, we don't actually need to have a physical piece of crystal to be able to engage with the energetics of it. Because essentially, it's like because we're physical beings, we like working with physical things, but essentially we're making the step and the progress to refining ourselves. So working with liquid is the next step, and then working with pure energy and consciousness is the step after that. But because some people feel more confident than others to be able to just call on, like essentially you can call on crystals into your field. But in order for you to do that, you need to have some understanding of the signature, what they look like, what shape they hold, the geometry, and that's a lot of information to hold if you're not familiar. So by taking it as a crystal, it's kind of as a liquid, it's kind of a bridge between working with a physical crystal and an etheric crystal. And essentially it is taking a specific crystal which holds a sequence or a code that reprograms the minerals that are already present in your body. So we already are a bag of minerals, and unless you're depleted, which a lot of people are, that's why taking colloidal minerals combinations are really good, just to top up your mineral content. But by taking a liquid crystal, it's not that you're ingesting a crystal, you're actually ingesting a code that has a certain number frequency of the geometry of a specific crystal, if that makes sense. It's a little bit hard to wrap your head around, but it's not necessarily like it's crushed up crystals in there. It's more the geometric coding to get the minerals that are present in your blood to form into that sequence, so you become that crystal. So your living matrix of minerals that are flowing through your body become, let's say, a fluorite. I have a fluorite crystal here. So they will hold the energetic signature of that, and in doing so you're holding the emotional counterpart to that as well. So it brings balance to those parts of self that you're trying to understand and you're trying to get information around by becoming that which you want to bring into your life, if that makes sense.
you're essentially like tuning yourself to that frequency of the crystal through.
And once you've taken a crystal, once your body knows the signature, you can call on it at any time. So if you've engaged with if you have a beautiful crystal and you're at home and then you're out traveling somewhere and you don't have it with you, your body knows what it is to hold it. Your body knows what color it is. Your body knows its signature. So you can call it to you, just like you can call a memory of a dear friend and you can feel them with you. when you've taken them and programmed your body internally, your body knows how to become that crystal. But the crystals you've not engaged with and not worked with, you know, it's harder to call on those frequencies because you haven't had those experiences or those, I guess, ways of, yeah, just bringing it into your space. So essentially, we have everything we need inside us, and that's my belief. But it's about fine tuning and focusing in on something that's specific and relevant for the now moment, in where you are on your healing path or on your path of awakening.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm so inspired to get started with taking the liquid crystals. I've been introduced to them just very briefly when I was working at a cafe called Naked Treaty, and we had them to put into some smoothies and things for a while. And so there would be days when I'd go in and take them, but I haven't really, I feel like that was an introduction to them, but I haven't really worked with them. And I haven't worked with specific crystals that work with my name, which I know is where it's good to start with the liquid crystals. So I'm
And also,
excited
yeah,
getting
it's
started.
also different to working with them like as a one-off, like when you just have like a one-off dose, or if you have it in a room spray or something, it's like it's a little bit of a feeling. But if you're programming, when you're programming your body, you're doing it on a 21-day sequence. So you're taking 7 drops in the morning, 7 at night for 21 days. And you know, it seems like a long time, but anything you do for 21 days is actually a reprogramming sequence for your whole nervous system and your body mineral complex. So it's a completely different feeling than if you do have a one-off dose of something. So basically people will notice it's a very subtle, like taking, you know, bush flowers or any kind of vibrational medicines. But what I noticed is after a month, so day 22 to 28, so that week after you've finished taking your crystals, you then can see the shift. And that's why it's really good to have a template to work with, because then you can look back to where you started and go, oh, wow, I've actually journeyed along this path and now I've integrated that understanding and that I get it now. It's like in there. And now there's another step on the path. So yeah, it's definitely like an integration process.
So and then your reports are really like a map, and they can lead you to that next step. So you can start working with something, integrate that,
Yeah.
see that next step. Yeah, it's really
And then you can also choose, there's like there's like combinations you can work with, or trinities or individual crystals, but also we can work with them on more extensive systems. So there's a part in the report which is all your body systems. So that's looking at, you know, your nervous system, your circulatory system, your respiratory system, and all the systems. And that's a whole nother level of intricacy with programming specific systems of the body, which are not just your overall, but going right into sometimes the seeds of any issues that might be happening. So I do a little scan, just a general scan, just to see what the energetic function of people's body systems are. And it's not meant to be a diagnostic tool for your physical health, because you know, I'm not a doctor, but I'm an energy doctor, so I can see what's going on energetically. And what happens in our energy field eventually filters into our physical field. So if we can work on our health in this layer of being, and clear out any issues at this layer, then we don't have to manifest them as physical ailments and diseases.
yeah. And is that something that comes through you intuitively with those body systems?
So the working with the specific body systems is part of my training, but the ability to know which crystals to work with, that is something that I yeah, through kinesiology, a lot of people might be familiar with muscle testing. So I've refined muscle testing down into just an internal sequence now. So I'm literally like interviewing and talking. I just, like, if anyone was to see me, they'd think I was completely crazy, but I just go in and I ask questions and I ask your body, I'm like, what's going on here? And I've got all my crystal allies there, and the crystals just jump forward, or they'll say, yep, and if I can't get really clear on which crystal, then I've got charts I can refer to. And so it's kind of, sometimes I meet someone and it's so obvious, like a crystal would just be, I thought I'd see a color around them, or you know, I might hear them say, generally clients will just be talking to me and they will say a word that triggers a crystal. So yeah, it kind of works like that for me.
It's incredible. So to for people who want to begin working with crystals, talking about some physical crystals for a moment, what, like, I think we've kind of touched on how we use them for healing and why through this conversation, but there's people can activate them, you know, and program them. And, you know, I guess there's times when you kind of know what crystal is there for. It will almost, you can sense what it's going to be doing for you. But there's other times where perhaps you can program that crystal for something specific. So I guess I just wanted to ask, from your perspective, for those of us wanting to work with our physical crystals that we've maybe collected throughout time, how can we work with them? What's a really just powerful way, but simple, that we can start working with crystals, activating them, programming them, whether they need to be cleared, just some simple things like that.
Yeah. So I had to plug my phone in. I hope I didn't move the screen too much. Okay, so there was a lot of questions there. Okay, so working with physical crystals. So I think, first of all, it's really important for knowing how to choose crystals as well.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens a lot is, and there's no right or wrong, but a lot of the time we can, you know, read or research what we need and then find the crystal. And that's actually a really good way of doing it, because then you learn about crystals you might not have come across. But if you get the opportunity to see a spread or go into a shop where you can see a whole lot of colors, coming to that trust of self to know that what you are attracted to is what your body needs. So just like when you go to the grocery store, you go to the markets, and you're sort of like, you might have a shopping list, but sometimes you might see a vegetable that you wouldn't normally buy, but you're like, I'm just loving that color, or I'm loving, like, I need to eat that vegetable. So crystals kind of work the same way. So I just really want to encourage people to really trust, you're not going to get it wrong, and trust what you're feeling, like what your yeah, what the imprint is with a crystal. And sometimes even a repulsion is interesting to note, because there are some crystals that you think, oh my gosh, I don't want that anywhere near me. So it's just really interesting to pay attention to your body responses with crystals. As far as programming goes, so just like we can program ourselves, and we mainly can program ourselves because we are, liquid is highly programmable, and we are full of liquid, just like water. So it's kind of like Dr. Emoto's work. You have a glass of water, you can write words, beautiful affirmations, and that's programming the water. So crystals, water is a big part of a crystal's formation, and they are like crystallized water as well, with minerals. So something like a clear quartz is holding such a clear and a wide bandwidth that its ability to be programmed is, it's like a clear slate. It holds so much information, but you'd want to program it in the case where there's something specific that you're wanting to work with, whereas just because the bandwidth is so big. Whereas a crystal, for example, I've got a piece of turquoise here, a crystal like turquoise, technically you could try and program it, but crystals that are more specific in their bandwidth, it has a very specific color frequency, and it has a very specific message that it delivers through that bandwidth. You're not going to want to try and program it to do something completely different, that it's not within its natural realm of working. So within turquoise's realm, it is a master communicator. It's a great stone for opening the throat chakra, but it's also an amazing stone for being in communion with the earth and connecting with the spirit of the earth. So you might hold an intention when you hold it that you want to use it specifically to support you communicating with the earth. Or you might have the intention specifically to help clear your throat so you can express yourself, but you're not going to go and get it to do something that is outside of its bandwidth. That's why I wouldn't really recommend to program crystals outside of silicon-based crystals. So silicon crystals are mainly your quartz varieties, and quartz, yeah, they're highly programmable. That's why they are used in a lot of our telecom devices, computer chips, all of these things using crystalline technology, LCD screens, liquid crystal screens, all of these, crystals have been used for hundreds of years in specific programming. So they are much easier to program because they are a clear slate. So something like this clear quartz here, yeah, it's very, whatever you're feeling in yourself when you're holding your crystal, and it's like you're having a communication with it, that is part of the programming. It is also really good to kind of acknowledge as well, if you don't really know what you're doing with programming crystals, it's not that you can do anything wrong, but also trusting that a crystal knows what it's doing. Like a crystal is a crystal because it is a crystal. It's got a specific sequence that it's pumping out. Now, what's important though is that that sequence is not being layered with stuff that it's absorbed, like negativity that it might have absorbed, because that's going to stifle the signal that it's radiating out. So clearing and cleaning is really important, and even cleaning old programs. So you might have programmed a crystal 10 years ago, but that program's not serving you anymore, and it's not really serving the crystal either, because the crystal is kind of like you're getting it to do a job, and the crystal already does its thing, it's being itself. And it's good if you're very clear in your mind what you want, and you know that crystal can support you to work with it like that. But then it's important to clear the program when you want to clear the slate again. So clearing is, there's lots of different ways you can clear crystals, and one of the ways that people recommend is smudging. But I really love working with salt water, because, and not all crystals can be put in salt water, so it's just good to know which ones you can. But I generally make up a big salt bath, because I've got lots of crystals, and they also have a bath once a month. And essentially working with salt is another crystal, and salt holds the geometric shape of a cube. So anywhere where you have a cube, it's like it automatically sort of like irons out all the frayed edges. It brings everything into order. It's like a really a systematic cleansing and clearing, and that's why we feel so good when we go in the ocean. It's like we just get purified. So crystals love salt water, but then you have to also rinse them in fresh water afterwards, otherwise you get salt crystals forming on top of the crystals. And with the case of certain crystals that don't like getting wet, like a selenite or certain calcites, there's a lot of really, yeah, everyone makes a mistake of putting their selenite, in the water, and it just loses its luster. And I mean, you can just rinse it very quickly under the tap, but you just want to pat dry it. But essentially using smudge is great, and intention and sound as well. I sometimes use, singing bowls and things to help energetically move anything that's stuck within the body of the crystal. I also, I can see Talan on there, hello. Also putting the crystals on the earth. I mean, I've just bought a beautiful new crystal home just yesterday, and the first thing I do when I bring them home is I put them on the earth, and I connect them in with the earth grid. And I have the intention that they're I visualize the crystal connecting back into the earth, because they've been taken out, they've been disembodied out of their caves and out of their matrices, and in some cases they've been taken all around the world. So I think really bringing the crystal back into the earth is a really, and into the grid is a really good thing as well, a service we can do for them. And then they start to radiate, they start to just be more activated, more alive, more aligned. Um,
Yeah, because
and
I
of course, love is also an activator always. You know, if you leave your crystals on the shelf, they're going to gather dust and they're going to feel unloved. You know, you've just got to like engage with them, work with them, you know, talk to them, be with them, like a human.
yeah. Yeah, I've often wondered how they, my awareness some time ago shifted to like, how do they actually feel about being ripped out of the ground? And are we messing with the energetics of the earth when we pull them out of where they're meant to be and move them to another part of the planet? Um,
That's a really good question, actually, and it's definitely one that I've sat with as well. You know, and it's why I've moved from working with physical crystals into liquid crystals because of the sustainability and essentially the energetic crystalline matrices. So, um, but I have to say, I still love crystals. It's not that I'm anti crystals because I think they have a place, but I think we don't need as many as we think we need. You know, having one talisman, or it's like having something in your medicine pouch. You know, you gather what you're working with and what you're engaging with, and if they don't have a function in your life, then you don't really need them. Do you know what I mean? They do have a place in, for example, I help people get beautiful crystals for their homes, and yes, they can be, you know, stunning pieces of art, but they're also energetically, like, they're amazing things to have in homes because it really shifts the field and the energy in a house. And so, you know, I really believe that back in Lemurian Atlantean times, we had crystals all over the place, and really we're all still in the earth and part of the earth. And what does get taken from the earth is, I guess, really a minute layer compared to what's still in the earth. It's not to say that we should keep taking stuff out all the time. I think it's being really conscious with what we do need and what we work with, you know, and what's excessive.
yeah, and I guess for just personally being mindful with that and really choosing what you're going to work with, um, and then also trusting that what comes to you and what calls to you, you're aligning with those frequencies to do more, be better here on the
Yeah.
planet. There's that higher purpose to it as well from that perspective. Um, but yeah, I guess we can all just be mindful about not excessively consuming and buying them. Um,
And that could be said for any industry and anything, you know, being excessive with our shoe shopping, for example. It's sort of not really necessary. It's like, how many shoes do you really need? But we still love them, you know, we need
right.
them.
I love, yeah, I love hearing your perspectives on this because it's gone so deep into something that is really simple, but you've just got so much wisdom um, that pours through you. I've got a lot out of talking about all this too, and thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you. I love talking about crystals. I could talk about them all day long. So thank you
All
very
right.
much.
I'm just seeing if I've got any more questions here that I'd love to touch on as well. Um, yeah, so I guess we've gone from, purchasing a crystal, clearing it, whether we program it or not, um, making sure that we're giving them love and actually working with them, not letting them just sit there and collect dust. And is there anything else, like for someone? I feel like that's pretty good. Um, and then shifting into, yeah, I'm really excited to shift into working with some liquid crystals. I can't get them in Bali right now, but
I know.
back to you in Australia. I
Well, just a little bit about the liquid crystals because also if you have a moment, I just felt like what really got me into them as well was hearing the story of their creation. I don't know if you want to hear about how they were
Yeah,
created.
I have all the time in the world.
Um, yeah, okay, great. So the man who brought this information through, for those of you that are looking for a crystal book that's got really amazing information, it's called the Liquid Crystal Oracle. So it's actually a card deck that you can work with as well as the book. And I found of all the crystal books that I've used over the years, I just find the information in there just so, I don't know, it just really resonates for me. So anyway, the guy who wrote this book is called Justin Mojica Assar, and he's a really interesting character. But he his story is, in a nutshell, is that his dad was part of the Druid Society, so the head of the Druid Society. So very much, you know, he grew up in a world of magic. Really grew up knowing, like, working with the magic of the trees, of the plants, of all the elements of the crystals. So that was just part of his kind of, I guess, youth. And so he had a really beautiful start to his life. And his parents got given a scroll. This is a pretty far out story. And the scroll said when he was 7 years old, he had to be taken to this monastery in Tibet for specific training. So his parents went and took him off to Tibet, put him in the temple and said, see you later, and kind of left him there for a while. And he didn't go into telling us what he did in the temple, but when he left, they gave him a ruby, and it was a ruby record keeper. So for those of you that are familiar with record keepers, they are certain formations that form not just on rubies, but also a lot of quartz as well, where they're like raised triangles. And wherever you have these triangles on crystals, they are said to be holding records and information, because, you know, crystals are amazing memory holders. Because they're ancient as well, they're so old, they've been taken hundreds of thousands of years to grow. So he had this, as a 7-year-old boy, this ruby crystal from these monks. And from that crystal, all this information was basically channeled through him, of all these crystalline grids of the mental and emotional templates, the grids, as well as, you know, there's lots of bodies of work to do with the trees and all kinds of, you know, nature kingdoms, basically. So it wasn't until about 2012, so he was told that he'd be delivering this information back to humanity. So it's ancient information that we worked with in Lemuria and Atlantis. So it's not new, it's old, but it was gifted to us from, it's a Palladian liquid light technology. And this working with liquids is a very profound way that, you know, you can really work with healing and energy. That's why it's kind of evolving past the need to take things out of the earth and working with the nature, the liquid nature, the very fluid nature, the nature of the emotions. So yeah, a big part of his work was delivered up until that point, and he went back to Tibet to drop the crystal off, and got home to find it had manifested back in his sock drawer, but the other side of it was revealed. So it was in like a locket. And so then a whole other body of work came out. So he's had a really quite remarkable life. And I just feel so inspired by just some great masters that are alive on the planet right now. And I've had the privilege of working with quite a few, working with Drumbelow Melchizedek and Sacred Geometry when I was much younger as well. And like when you meet these beings who are really bringing these information, you know, like activating these memories back on the planet, it activates something within that makes you go, oh my gosh, yeah, of course I remember this. Like it feels like this technology is not new, but we just have to remember it. And so that's why I'm loving working with the liquid crystals. But I know we will evolve beyond that too. Like that's just, everything's a stepping stone. So yeah, I just really wanted to share that story because that really inspired me and my path of delving deep into this information.
Yeah, it's such an inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
My
It
pleasure.
just more and more to get my hands on the liquid crystals and really, really
Because who doesn't love living a magical life, right? Like if it's not magic, if it's not inspiring, then it's a bit boring, right? So I
Yeah.
always follow the path of magic. For me, that's just definitely been my compass, and crystals have led me there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex. I feel like we've just covered so much juicy stuff for people to start working with and
Oh, thank you. Well, if anyone has questions out there, please feel free to be in touch. Yeah, and anytime, happy to have a chat.
so I wanted to ask where can so people can find you here on Instagram and also on your Facebook because you do Facebook lives and live crystal like readings each week.
Yeah,
Tell us a
yeah.
little bit about
So
find you and some of the offerings you have.
yeah, sure. So I have I'm here on Instagram, but I'm only just like Chrissy's just teaching me how to use it, so I'm only just getting the hang of how it works. But mainly, I've got my jewelry on Instagram. But for live channel sessions every Monday at 11:11, I do I do 3 crystals of the week, a crystalline trinity, where I just take the opportunity to speak of 3 crystals and in a way that they can really assist us in our week ahead. And I also do live readings. So at the end of that, anyone who's online watching can just give me a wave and we just roll through crystals like that. So it's a great way to learn and super fun for me as well. And then on my website, I've got a list of my services. So that's all updating because there's lots of new things birthing in every moment. So the crystalline body sessions are on there, a bit more information about what's in them. And also, yeah, just you can just reach out to me in whichever avenue is fine to be in touch.
And I'll do a post after this and I'll tag your Instagram and share your website and things like that so people can easily
Thanks,
find you.
darling.
Um,
Beautiful.
yeah. And
So lovely connecting and seeing you in Bali. It looks so lovely there.
it's really beautiful. We did get to
Mm.
go down to Uluwatu for a few days, which was also really nice. But I mean, you came and visited the place that we've been blessed enough to land in, and it's really also nice to return here and have this space for this wild time on the planet. It's
Yeah.
we're kind of I'm here with two of my friends, and we're just like looking around every day. One of us will pretty much say, how did this happen? How did we end up here? It's amazing. Good manifesting somewhere along
So
the
blessed.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank
Oh,
you so
beautiful,
much for those.
Chrissy. Well, thanks again, and we'll be in touch really soon.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much.